operators. That's first. But to answer your question with my thoughts, so obviously he does a lot of shit that I dislike, right? I like the fact that he at least reopened conversations with Putin and Russia to try to bring some type of deal together with the Russia-Ukraine war. He's obviously failed. He still hasn't gotten anything done. But if Kamala Harris got in, she wouldn't even have bothered to have the conversation. The Biden administration pretty much didn't talk to Putin at all during the entire conflict. And I still blame the Biden administration for why that conflict kicked off in the first place. Immigration, controversial take. I think he's doing good with that. Now, I know I'm going to have a bunch of, progressives that are losing their minds and crying shit like that. Like, oh, what do you mean he's doing well with immigration? Well, for you to understand why I think that, you need to understand that before Trump came into office, no president was actually enforcing immigration at a domestic level, right? All the brain dead idiots always say, oh, well, Obama had more deportations. Yeah, every Democrat for the most part is going to have a lot of deportations because when Democrats are in office, illegal aliens feel more emboldened to cross the border. Thus, when they cross the border, they get caught. When they get caught, they get deported. That counts as a deportation stat. So essentially, those numbers that people are flexing under the Obama era or other Democrat eras are simply people that are caught at the border and turned back, not the people that are domestically arrested and deported back. So with Trump, right, you have to compare apples to apples. So first he shut down the border. Good. Then he put ICE agents and Border Patrol agents into these interior cities that were historically very difficult to deal with when it comes to immigration enforcement and started doing what's called interior immigration enforcement. No president wants to do this because it's almost like political suicide, and it's a catch-22. If you do your job, people are going to like you. If you don't do your job, people are going to complain. So this is a can that's been getting kicked down the road by multiple presidential administrations. And Trump is the first president to actually finally go hard on interior immigration, which has been a problem that's been going on for a very long time. So I'll give him credit for that, despite the fact that people are probably going to complain about Alex Preddy and Renee Good and all this other shit. It's like, dude, immigration surge like this is unprecedented. And obviously there's going to be use of force scenarios that we haven't seen before. And the other thing I want to add before I finish this immigration part is I think it's important for people to remember that since immigration has never been enforced to that level, for a lot of people, it's like a shock, it creates shock for them because they're like, wait, hold on. These people that are here without paperwork are actually illegal? Yeah, dude, they're illegal. They shouldn't be here and they should have been deported a long time ago. But since we haven't enforced immigration for so long, people are looking at it like it's some radical, Gestapo, fascist state. But it's like, no, dude, these are immigration laws. It's just that we've been pussies and not been enforcing it. That's why you're so shocked by it. But it should have been like this from the beginning. So I give him credit for ripping the Band-Aid off. Now, the bad, I don't like anything that he's doing in the Middle East at all. I don't like that he has someone like Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, who are both, super Zionists that have personal business interests in the Middle East, for that matter, running the diplomacy. I think that's ludicrous and wild. There's absolutely no Arab representation whatsoever in the diplomacy process, and it shows, right? We're talking about these guys are negotiating for Gaza, for example. They don't give a shit about the people there. They just want to go ahead and build casinos and compete with the UAE. Because something else that's important to note here is that the Middle East, a lot of these Middle Eastern countries are realizing that, they can't rely on oil. So the new trend right now is to build on Dubai's success with bringing in expatriates and, having a thriving economy, despite the fact that they have mass immigration, because Dubai is probably the only city I've seen, the only country, the UAE, where I've seen mass immigration actually work. But that's a whole other conversation. Other countries in the Middle East want to emulate that model and bring tourism to create more revenue. So Saudi Arabia has started modernizing and westernizing. They've allowed alcohol in. They've opened up clubs, etc. I think that the Americans and the Israelis want to replicate that in Gaza because that's prime real estate there. So, and we've already seen the plans, right? They've already literally said, yeah, we're going to turn it into an international city. If you guys remember back in March when Trump met with, I think it was Netanyahu, when he came over, Trump kind of gave the slip and said, yeah, we're going to take Gaza and we're going to cherish it. And it was like, what the fuck? What do you mean you're going to take Gaza? And he hasn't mentioned it since because he got so much backlash. But that's what they plan to do, man. So I don't like the foreign policy with the Middle East whatsoever. It's too pro-Israel. We got dumbass Mike Huckabee over here talking about, oh, yeah, I think the Israelis should, to have it river to river. Obviously that outraged the whole Middle East. 14 different countries came out and condemned them for that. But the reason why they condemned them is because It's happening. It's true. Like, we've seen that the United States cannot stop Israel whatsoever with what they want. So it really hit home for them and, reminded them that, look, you guys only exist because the Israelis and the United States are letting you. So this is why Saudi Arabia and other countries were outraged when they bombed Qatar, which was a huge, problem. All the Gulf states got together, and condemned it. Saudi Arabia went ahead and entered into a pact with Pakistan for access to nuclear weapons. So, Mike Huckabee simply just said the quiet part out loud that he wasn't supposed to and confirmed what we already know. And that is that the Israelis are, quickly working towards some type of greater Israel project. So, yeah, that's my whole take on the foreign policy, why I don't like it. Tariffs were a monumental failure. We know that the Supreme Court basically, said it was bullshit because Trump invoked like some emergency powers that apparently tariffs don't qualify for. And I'm trying to think what else. If you I'm just going off like the big things off the top of my head: immigration, foreign policy, tariffs.
Free speech.
Free speech is better. I will say that he absolutely him coming into office absolutely helped censorship recede a bit. Now some people might not agree with that, but take a look at censorship during the Biden administration versus now. It's significantly better, right? We got people on YouTube talking about dancing Israelis, dude. Like, that was a no-go like 3 years ago. That was like one of the fastest ways to get your channel banned. So now the Israelis are kind of ramping up the censorship now. But I would say that we had a decent run of 1 year or so where, the censorship had really been significantly receded from what it was before. So that's a positive as well.
Myron, do you not think that happened towards the end of the Biden administration when Elon took over X? Because, for example, if you look at all the banned people, like Nick and various others, they all came back during the Biden administration, right?
No, they did come back towards the tail end, but they were able to exist and go viral on other platforms as well. Because once Trump came into office, YouTube started relaxing their guidelines significantly, and so did other platforms. Like Twitch is still the only one that's like very pussy, Twitch. But YouTube was a big one that, pushed back their censorship, especially when it came to COVID and other topics that used to get you banned. Elections being rigged, COVID, conflicts. You were able to openly start talking about it. There was a period of time, guys, I don't know if you guys remember this. If you talked about the Russia-Ukraine war and you said anything about the Ukrainians losing, there was a good chance you could lose your channel. That's why Jackson Hinkle got banned for a few years. People forget that you couldn't even talk about geopolitical affairs about Russia-Ukraine, let alone Zionism. So,
yeah, I think you're 100% right. Remember, you got demonetized as well. And,
yeah.
Even these spaces now, we stream them on YouTube. I do videos and interviews on YouTube, and like I'm very confident that you couldn't do that like more than a year and a half ago. So
no, you couldn't, bro. We I had to use code words to talk about Zionism or Jewish power, any of that stuff. At least now we can talk about it. But does that mean that it's perfect? No, but it's better than it was. So overall, when Trump does things I agree with or I think is good, I'll give him credit, but I'm also very critical of him. And, I would say his biggest blunder is letting the Zionist lobby dictate his foreign policy like many other presidents.